Hello and welcome to the Total Mental Performance Podcast, the one and only mindset podcast dedicated to helping fitness entrepreneurs and coaches master their mindset, giving you insider access to industry leaders around their psychology, their campfire stories, and the mindset required to be successful in this business. I'm your host, Kieran O'Neill, mental performance coach and founder of Total Mental Performance, the world's fastest growing specialist mindset service dedicated to the fitness industry. So without further ado, let's lean in and listen. Yes, team. This week's episode is one of my rising stars. When I first come across Archie, how many clients are you on? Was it 10, 15, maybe 20?
Yeah, between 10 and 15, I'd say. Maybe pushing 20 when I finally got into the academy. But 10, 15, 20, somewhere there.
So Archie's been one of my rising stars over the past year and a half now?
Yeah, man. I think it's about a year since we first had that conversation, which is crazy. It's how fast it's whizzed by and how much has changed since then.
Time absolutely flies. But anyway, this week we have Archie Gravenor. And Archie's been one of our TMP superstars. He started in the academy, worked his way through there. His business completely blew up from what he ever expected, from what we were speaking about on that call. And now really he's going it to completely different levels. He's now been through the evolution program with me one-to-one. And just watching you grow over this last 12 months in so many different ways, personally, professionally, commercially, coaching-wise, it's been really inspiring, mate. So a big welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate you inviting me here, like genuinely. I was saying just before this is like out of my comfort zone to be here speaking. But I think that speaks probably volumes of the work we've done together and the past year as well, like you just said. So yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Oh, my pleasure. And your confidence has gone to a completely different league because you've always had an outwards confidence. You've always been a very, very good talker. You've always presented really well. But it's that internal confidence that I've seen, the subtle differences that we've seen, that's gone to a completely different league. But for all the listeners, if you could explain who it is that you are and what you do.
Yeah, good question. So I'm Archie Gravenor. I'm the founder, director, head coach of the Optimised Entrepreneur, which is a coaching company that takes people from who they are now to who they truly want to be via the vehicle of their body, their fitness, their physique. So helping people excel, business owners and entrepreneurs who feel like they don't truly fit the system, who feel like they've been pigeonholed their whole life, who feel like life has just taking them in a motion that they don't want to take, helping them become who they truly want to be. Love that.
But you haven't always been a coach. If anything, mate, you've accelerated at such a speed. Just run us through what you were up to before you got into coaching.
Yeah, it's good. Like, this is crazy. I was speaking to George, who I'm staying with yesterday, and just reflecting on that, because he didn't know about my journey, just reflecting on that. It just made me so happy, man. Like, just giving myself a pat on the back. So before coaching, I'm going to take you all the way back to school, actually. So starting in primary school, literally always felt like I didn't fit in, which is weird because I was always one of the popular kids. Same through secondary school, same through college. Always felt like I was just being jammed into something that I wasn't. And then I came out of college and went straight into a kind of like an apprenticeship for quantity surveying, which is basically a bean counter in the construction industry. So very corporate, meeting clients, spreadsheets, all that kind of stuff. I did that for 5 years whilst going through a degree at the same time in quantity surveying. Got to the 5th year, got my quantity surveying degree on the 5th year. So December 2020. And December 2020, I handed my notes in and became a coach as soon as I got that degree, which is a bit of odd timing, but that's what I did beforehand.
And what was it that made you leave that to go into fitness entrepreneurship? That's a very stable job. My mum actually used to work at a construction company, and she wanted me to be a quantity surveyor, believe it or not. And I thought, yeah, it's the same option, but it's never going to fly. So what was it that made you go, you know what, I'm going to take some risks. I'm going to leave that old world behind?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think you've just said it. It was the safe option. Again, harking back to when I was in school, I used to be the kid selling sweets on the playground, and then I created other businesses along the way, a dropshipping business. And my point in saying that is I did that because that life of 9 to 5 living was never going to be for me. Entrepreneurship is something that I truly think that I was either born with or was seeded into me at a very early age. So going through them 5 years as a quantity surveyor just truly showed me what I didn't want. And then it came back to my own journey in fitness. I found what I truly wanted to help people with. And I found that I could grow a decent business at doing it whilst doing it. So I underwent my own fairly significant transformation where, because I was a quantity surveyor, I was doing a job that I didn't love. I didn't have any passion. I was working very long hours. I was very stressed. I got fat. I got unhappy. I got unconfident. And I felt out of alignment with myself. So I went through a huge transformation myself. This was going back to when I was about 18. And then I started helping friends. I started helping family, and I saw what they got out of it. And it was incredible. Like, it genuinely made me so happy. And it got to a point where I got this bug. I was like, I know what I want to do. I want to go be a PT. I want to help other people do this. Like, I can be paid for this. And I remember saying to my dad when I was toying with quitting my job, I remember saying to him, I'm happy to live off like tins of beans. Like, I was getting paid a very good salary as well. I was like, I'm happy to live off tins of beans here. Like, this is what I want to do. And that's how much it meant to me. And it's just so happened that it's turned into something pretty damn cool.
Yeah, 100%. So run us through the story so far. So getting started from 0 clients up until, how many are you coaching today, roughly?
Just under 50.
Right. So run us through that 0 to 50 sprint.
Yeah, so I think it was December 2020, handed in my notice. Didn't have any clients when I did that. And that was like the height of the pandemic, the height of the COVID pandemic. Everything was locked down. So it was a very ballsy, risky move. Now I look back at it, I can tell why my dad was a bit worried. I went alone for a long while in terms of not hiring a mentor, learning off my own back. I've been coached before, so I knew what to do. But now I look back at it, my coaching was probably substandard in terms of the delivery, the systems, what we actually gave people. It's very basic, probably what 99% of coaches out there actually deliver. But I didn't want to be one of the 99%. Over time, invested into myself, into the business massively, to level myself up, to level the systems up, to level up ultimately the results that we were getting. And I think honestly, just over time, people saw what we were doing from the outside. It grew off of referrals, it grew off network, and it kind of just spiraled out of, I wouldn't say out of control, but very, very quickly compared to what I was ever expecting. It's now at a place that I probably never expected when I initially quit my job and handed my notice in.
There's one thing there you mentioned, which is about the referrals. And I think when coaches, particularly when they're starting out, where you've literally gone from ground zero, there's 2 parts of coaching. There's the actual coaching delivery, and then there's the business of coaching. Too many people focus so much on the business of coaching, and they forget to get their clients results. They're spending more time solely on systems, solely on marketing, solely on whatever. And I do believe if you're a new coach starting out, it's really important that you fucking deliver. However you do that, whatever you need to do, whatever information you need, whoever you need to go to, because if you deliver and you get the results, your clients become the walking product. They become the walking advertisement. So clearly what you did there was you got your first little batch of clients, you smashed it out of the park, and that organically grew. And then from there, you're then building on learning the business of coaching, getting the systems, getting the marketing, and starting to build up that momentum from there.
Yeah, 100%. The one thing I didn't mention actually was I took 5 people on for free before I started. Friends, family. 3 or 4 of them got like outstanding results. That was obviously a boost in confidence, but that was my marketing for the next 3 months. And it just grows off of that. Like, their friends saw what happened to them from working with me for free. So yeah, they become your, like you say, they just become your best networking team. It's like a spider web. If you get someone a result, it will just grow outwards. And that's what we're here to do. I think too many coaches forget this, and they focus so much on the business. And again, I'm called the Optimised Entrepreneur. I'm very much for business. But client results and customer results have to come first. They have to. Otherwise, you don't have a business there, or you don't have a sustainable business at least.
You mentioned something there about working for free. So I got my first job by offering to work for free. I won't go into the long story, but I basically got hired at 17 to sell software and educational virtual reality software. And this is like years ago. This is before this sort of thing was normal. And that's how I got my first job. I ended up selling $500,000 of software for them after selling nothing for 9 months. And all that experience just really, really set me up in the business world. Then even doing what I'm doing right now as a mental performance coach, I worked with 10 people for free. And after that, we just blew up because it just grew. So if you're a coach that's delving into the online world and you haven't got any online clients yet, think about taking on 5 or 10 clients for free, getting those transformations, getting those results, building up your confidence, because people, I think, rush into the business part. I must be earning XK amount a month. I must be doing this. I must be doing this. They put themselves under pressure. But if you focus on delivering a really top core quality coaching service, the momentum that will build out of that, it'll be slower in the first few months, but the momentum you build off the back of that will really start to ride. So, and I think you've proven that without a doubt.
Yeah, and I think one thing I just mentioned was the marketing from that. But it's not just marketing; it's the education from doing the do and walking the walk ultimately. Because yes, you can join as many mentorships as you want, and again, I'm in a few. But those mentorships are never going to give you that experience of when I started coaching with those 5 people. And this sounds crazy. I was probably as busy then coaching them as I am now coaching 50 people. And I got away from running my coaching like that because I've done it and I've seen it and I've almost had that experience, if that makes sense.
So run us through, you went from 0 to 15 to 20, and that's when you landed in the academy. So what was happening in your world when you first reached out about the academy and got in touch there?
Yeah, so I've got to think back here. So what was happening in my world? Probably feeling very overwhelmed. So I had obviously got to a point where I think I was probably doing like 2 or 3K in revenue, doing okay, replaced a decent amount of salary compared to the old job and stuff like that. But something was missing in terms of I felt overwhelmed, felt some anxiety, which is very unlike me. Felt more stressed than I should be. I always come back to this, felt out of alignment with where I should be, uncalibrated. And then I was in a mentorship, which you did a talk to, really resonated with me, and ultimately reached out to you and ended up on a call with you. And now we're here.
Well, remember on that call, we were talking about the investment, and you're like, oh, do I, don't I? You're really, really on the fence, and you backed yourself. And just run me through now, when you look back on going on that process through the academy and what you learned, and that Archie at the time that almost didn't do it, what would you say to him?
Yeah, stop being a fencer, first and foremost. And that's really not the type of person I am. I'm a very, very much all-in person. It was just a financial burden, but looking back at it, it's not a financial burden. If I didn't invest, it'd been such a missed opportunity. And if I was to speak to myself back then, it would be think of the cost of not doing this rather than the cost of doing it, because the cost of doing it is very small. The cost of not doing it is absolutely huge. If we look in 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, 10 years.
So if you're going to explain to him, look, Archie, if you go into the academy, this is what you're going to learn. What would you say the top points you took away from that were and what the outcomes were?
About yourself. I don't think I knew myself very well. I think I thought I did, but you're going to learn about yourself, your mind, how you operate, and how and what works well for you as an individual, rather than what maybe you think status quo should be in your industry or in life.
And I remember specifically there was an emotional puzzle about sales, if you remember, in the academy. Run the listeners through what was happening there, and then also what we managed to shift from a mindset perspective and how that changed your business.
Yeah, it's a really good question, because again, it's something that I never thought I had, but it was like a fear of selling or I think probably a fear of selling or an anxiety behind it. And I couldn't quite work out why. I couldn't quite work out where I was going wrong. And I think it was a disconnect between my confidence and my product almost, that weren't quite matching up. So when I was trying to sell people into what I do and into my coaching and ultimately help them out and help them change their life, there was a lack of confidence behind what I was saying and behind my words. And people sniff that out from a mile away. If you're not confident in what you're doing and you don't have the true backing of yourself, people will sniff it out from a mile away. And I think it was that puzzle, fixing that and overcoming that was a huge, huge, huge shift in where I was to where I am. Because I have zero problems with that now. It's one of my favorite bits, is speaking to someone on that initial call. And I think it's the mindset shift of, I know we've just called it a sales call, but it's a mindset shift of, it's a sales call to now that's their first coaching call. That's the call to take them and show them the roadmap and show them what's possible. And if they like the sound of it, absolutely amazing. If they don't, then they're probably not right for me anyway. So I think that was a big shift that we made probably from day one. And I remember my closing rate went from about 30-40% to literally it was 100% over the next 10 calls, but to over 20-30 calls, 90%. Still sits at about 90%. If I get 10 people on a call, I'll close 9 of them. They'll be new clients.
I remember you're very diligent. You used to track the stuff in a spreadsheet. And I remember right before you made that shift, I think you sent me a screenshot. And you said, mate, I don't know what's going on. Nothing's landing for me. Nothing's going here. Nothing's going here. And we just had a bit of back and forth on a couple of voice notes. And seeing that shift from I'm trying to sell this person something to it's just a coaching call, and going that layer deeper. Because I think people get a little hung up on the idea of the close, the idea of the sale or whatever, when actually you just need to connect with another human being. And if you can actually create that into a coaching experience that's so, so powerful, then you're going to have much better results. They're going to be more bought into you. Whereas if you start telling them all about, and we've got this magic system and we do this, 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 and it costs this much. And if you don't do it, what are you going to do about you feeling fat, or what are you going to do about this or this or this? You get stuck in all of that. It just doesn't work. It's inauthentic. So I think since you made that shift of I'm here to coach, the sales a bonus, that just took the pressure off. And then it's just seeing that and how that catapulted your business from there to where it is now it's really cool.
I think with that, if you do sell someone in the Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street way, and you twist their arm into it. With coaching, it's so emotional, it's so individual that they're not going to be a good fit for you if you have to twist their arm into it. So actually showing that person where they are now, where they could be, and then roadmap in between it. That's where it's done. You don't need to use sleazy, shitty sales tactics to get people in, and you shouldn't do. Because they're not going to be a good fit for you. And again, it comes back to the sustainability of business ultimately. If you do that, you're going to crash and burn, in my opinion, anyway.
100%. So let's follow the story forward there. So at that point, you got to a space, you're like, Kieran, you know what? I need to duck out the academy for a bit. This is what we call a graduation moment. A lot of coaches think, they use the word, I'm going to abbreviate, drop-offs. They hear a client wants to leave and they instantly start questioning themselves. They start questioning their service. They start questioning, oh my God, my revenue's going down. Or they start questioning all of that. As soon as you said it to me, we spoke about it and we realized that you got what you came for. And that is what we call a graduation moment. So whenever a client leaves, these are the things you need to be thinking about. Number one, did they get what they came for? Because if the answer is yes, that's a graduation moment. High five, celebrate that. You might be able to see more for them than they see in that moment. That's okay. And you can show them that and hold up that mirror. And if they want to take it, great. And if they don't, that's a win. If they didn't get what they came for, and instead you got to ask yourself, well, were they coachable? Were they listening? Were they implementing? Were they doing what they said they were going to do? Because the answer, a lot of clients aren't coachable, but coaches take it on themselves and they blame themselves. Oh, it must be me. It must be my service. It must be something wrong. Now, if they didn't get what they came for and they weren't coachable, then ask, well, is it just economic? For some clients, particularly with what's happening in the UK at the minute, it will just be, I've lost my job. Somebody loses their job, they lose their job. You can't really do anything about that, And then finally, if they didn't get what they came for and they didn't graduate, and if it wasn't financial, and if they were coachable, then you got to ask yourself, where did I drop the ball? And I think having that framework just helps alleviate a lot of anxiety. And it was pretty quick. I could see, well, Archie's got what he's came for. He's ready to graduate. And that was high five. And then you went out into the wilderness. And then you realized, okay, I'm ready to go to a completely different league. And then you came into our Evolution program. Our Evolution program is 4.5 months and it's working one-to-one with fitness entrepreneurs that really want to take them, their mindset, their emotions, their leadership, their authority and their business to a completely different league. And, it weren't like you came in and it's like, things are awful, things are terrible. Things were pretty good, but you recognized, there's another league to get to here. So just paint a picture as to what was happening in your world when you went, you know what, let's go to another league.
Yeah. So when I started the Evolution and when I reached back out to you, I think I always knew I wanted to work one-to-one with you anyway. But when I reached back out, things were in a very good place, all round, fulfilled relationships, able to travel. Business was in a really good place. Client results were in the best place they ever had been. But I just knew there was another box to unlock, another level to go to. In terms of mindset, there was a bit of procrastination going on. And procrastination's always leading from somewhere else. there was some anxiety, which I didn't even recognize at the time. I don't think I was having like mini panic attacks, which is really weird, just from stress and overwhelm. And yeah, I think that's ultimately it, but I didn't even realize that at the time. So I just reached out to go from like good to a great place.
And off the back of that, what did you learn about yourself in the process of taking you to where you are today? Because the Archie you are today versus the Archie that started Evolution. And then we go even, and I've been loving watching your journey, go even earlier back towards the academy and how you've grown from there. It's inspiring. But start Archie at the beginning of Evolution to where you are today. What have you learned along that process that you think might help others?
Yeah, in regards to myself back at the Evolution to now, I think there was a lot that I didn't recognize was going on behind the scenes. So there was procrastination, there was anxiety, there was stress, all of which are normal things, but there was too much of each. And I was too emotionally attached to things, whereas now I can remove the emotion and recognize just like what we went through about if a client drops off, going through the process now. And almost I think the Archie back then had a lot more noise. The Archie now doesn't have as much noise. He has a lot more space in his head, which is a very nice feeling. It's not really something I've ever had in my life. Is that space to just think freely. But yeah, I think there's a lot more. I think space is the right word. A lot more peace, almost, especially when it comes to business. The decision making is a lot more sharper. Procrastination is a lot less, and like I say, the anxiety and stuff like that is nearly non-existent.
What are some of the techniques you picked up or some of the tools, whether that's around structure, whether that's managing emotion or whatever, that you took away that somebody might hear and go, oh, that's interesting?
Yeah, so I'm going to give any coach at a certain level a really quick thing that we did on before I was even in the program. And that was go get yourself a work phone. Like that is a game changer. Yeah. I could not imagine now having my work on my personal phone. I could not imagine it. Like that would drive me crazy now. And I look back at that decision and yeah, it cost me like, I don't know, 50 quid a month. But is that worth 50 quid a month to get my mental bandwidth back to give it to other people? Absolutely, yes. Like that was one of the game changers that before I even joined. Second thing, downtime is uptime, 100%. Learning to actually take time off and truly taking time off. I think before I said I was doing it, I listened to your advice from the academy, but it wasn't true downtime. It was pretend to take time off, still have my personal phone on me. If someone's dropped me a text or a drop off, then I don't enjoy that day and then you're not recharging. So it's actually having the time to do nothing and being okay with that.
Yeah.
And not feeling bad about it.
That's it. And now that you've shifted all of that, how much better has your coaching become?
Yeah, 100%. I think, again, I think a game changer, just that phone, like having the ability to have a separate place for messages. I know this sounds so basic, but the basic things make the biggest difference.
Yeah, they do.
So just things like communication's in a much better space. And then my energy, my productivity is so much better. And on top of that, creativity is in a much better place. So more productive, more energy, more creativity just leads to better coaching. Better coaching leads to better client results, leads to changing more lives. And then that leads to obviously more network, more spider web.
So that's what we're talking about, digital boundaries. So when Archie says I hadn't even started yet, often there's a wait time to work with me one-to-one. But what I always say is once you're in, the coaching starts from day one. It's exactly the same for your clients. Even if they have to wait a week for a program, it doesn't start in 7 days. It starts from the day that they sign up. And it's exactly the same. But I was asking Archie about his digital inputs and what was happening. And he said he's getting a lot of noise and he was never really switching off. So I said, you need a work phone. And the reason you need a work phone is because if you're getting client messages and you're checking Instagram, you're checking WhatsApp, you're checking all of that work stuff all of the time, and you take that same device and you take it out on your downtime when you're meant to be chilling and relaxing, or you're with a friend or a family member or a partner out for dinner or whatever, and then all of a sudden your phone rings and you see you've got a client message or you've got an email, you've got something like that, you're instantly ripped out of that moment. You're no longer present and you're not being effective in your personal life, and you're definitely not being effective in your professional life. So it's such a simple tool, but having two separate phones, one for your work, one for your personal. My personal phone goes everywhere I go. My work one doesn't. If I'm having a king day on a Wednesday, no phones. I'm just there. I'm just present. And it's so simple, but people often forget that. And then you'll hear, yeah, but you know, I got to make sure family can get hold of me, or I don't want to have 2 phones in my pocket or whatever. It's like, fine, but the cost of you constantly being on all of the time is so expensive in so many different ways: decision making, emotions, in terms of coaching, in terms of being a partner, of being a family member or a friend. It's mental. It just doesn't make sense.
100%. Looking back at it, like it's actually crazy. Like you say, just it's all consuming. I think it's probably the right word. If it's always with you 24/7, like I used to wake up in the middle of the night and check my like work stuff. I won't do that anymore because my phone's off. It's not an option. But I used to check it, and then all of a sudden you've got a client drop off that's messaged you late at night, and then that's ruined your night's sleep, and it's ruined your next morning, and you feel like shit. Yeah, like it's honestly a game changer. And I think this is like it's a very basic thing. People are probably listening to this thinking that's not magical, but yeah, come back to like a fitness analogy. A calorie deficit isn't magical. It's the most basic thing. Like the basic things work, and they work well. And I think sometimes we kind of risk missing the wood from the trees with the basics, and you almost just have to strip it back to that kind of stuff.
World class basics. Simple scales, complex fails. Something like, so for me, there's 2 really simple things I need to do every single day. When I wake up, I read my mission statement. So this is about who I am, where I'm going, and where I'm taking TMP and my general family. Then I've got declarations, and I'm declaring who I'm going to be for the day. I don't believe in affirmations. Affirmations is very much pat yourself on the shoulder. I'll be okay. I'm good. Think about that word, affirm. I don't need any affirm. I don't need to affirm anything. I'm here to declare. So I do those every morning. And then in the evening, I go on my little spreadsheet, and I'm tracking my day out of 10. How was this day out of 10? Was it 10? Was it a 1? 10 being the best, 1 being the lowest. How's my anxiety? How's my energy? How's my productivity? How was, even I suffer with migraine. Did I have a migraine or not? Tracking these very, very simple things is so simple, right? I read a piece of paper in the morning. I usually play Ludwiko Einaudi Experience. I don't know if you've heard that track. If you have, do that in the mornings. That will get you going. Doing that in the morning, and then just filling out a little spreadsheet in the evening. I'm also tracking my sleep, my steps, my training, my food. All of that keeps me so balanced. It's so simple. Read a piece of paper and fill in the spreadsheet. And those 2 little set points just enable me to start my day really well, and then process my day and allow me to track my performance. So these little hacks, these little things that you can put in are so simple, but they make the biggest and generate some of the most strongest returns.
100%. And again, you bring it back to a fitness analogy. What are the 5 things or 4 or 5 things that are going to make the biggest difference to someone? Fresh air, hydration, calories, nourishment, movement.
That's it.
They're basics.
They are basics.
And they make the biggest difference. Like I think everyone's always looking for a hack or a magic trick that's going to fix them or solve them, but it's never going to come.
So let's talk about some of the complex stuff, because that's very much practical. Do this, do that. But we've had a lot of emotional conversations, had a lot of deep conversations. We had a lot of conversations that logically almost feel like they don't make sense. But when you do make that connection, of course they made sense. So let's run through some of those things. So run me through some of the biggest emotional breakthroughs that you've made on the Evolution program.
Yeah, it's funny. Before I do, I think it's worth saying, if you told me of maybe 6 months ago, maybe 12 months ago, about the conversations we would have been having, I'd probably laugh in your face and say that's absolutely not worth a penny. And I say that because I was probably blinkered that this is almost like mumbo jumbo looking into your past. Don't need to do that. Probably from an ego standpoint, let's look forwards, not backwards. So I think it's probably worth saying that. But in terms of like the biggest breakthrough, I think it was when we look backwards to very early days, like going backwards to my first memories and then forwards a little bit. It was that I was always told that I couldn't achieve X if I didn't do Y. So again, I always felt like I didn't fit in. And school always told me, like teachers didn't like me. They always told me, if you don't get this grade, you're not going to succumb to anything. And like genuinely those words, I've heard them 100 times. And I think the biggest breakthrough was was kind of realizing that that was why I was feeling certain things, why I was procrastinating certain things as well. I think that a lot of procrastination drove from having that in the back of my mind. And the fact that ultimately you're told you're never going to become anything, like over and over and over again. And again, it's something I never realized before having those conversations and going deep.
And school always puts in lots of different limiting beliefs. You're often comparing to other people. You're also getting messages from teachers that have completely different worldviews. Also, the academic world is very different to the business world. So that's always a challenge. And like you, I was the kid at school selling sweets and doing all of that. It's like, yeah, but I'm actually getting paid now. Like, I don't want to wait another 5, 6, 7, 8 years before I can do that. I'm doing it now. And that can create a lot of pressure and a lot of stress, particularly with teachers. I really resonate with you there on teachers telling you you're not going to be enough, or you got to do this, you got to do that. I had my Spanish teacher tell me, literally in front of the whole class, well, your mum's Spanish and you can't even get a C. She wouldn't want a failure, would she? And I cried my eyes out and slammed the door shut, and I was adamant I wasn't going to go back. And it was only when I was doing the same work that you're doing that I realized how much that impacted me. I had such a chip on my shoulder to, air quotes, prove everyone wrong. But I have nothing to prove to anyone else other than me. If I want to do something, I'll do it because I want to do it, not because I have to prove myself to anyone else. Sometimes you have to go back to those darker places and those little places when you're younger, when you're like, I don't even think it was that bad, but it's clearly made an impact on your reality and the way in which you interpret the world. So when you made those shifts, what have the outcomes been?
Yeah, I think procrastination was a big one because there was a reason I was procrastinating. And I think it came back to you're not going to be enough. So it's almost like, what's the point in trying? Because if you're always being told you're not going to be able to achieve what you want to achieve from a very young age, you're hardwired to believe it. So what's the point in walking the walk and actually getting the necessary done? So I think removing procrastination, or to a certain point, probably 60-70% of where it was a massive shift. And it all drives from that, looking back at it, those young school days, young Archie being told that he won't be able to do what he wants to do.
Procrastination is a fascinating one. I think it's somebody that every coach beats themselves up with. It's never usually a willpower issue. It's usually either a physical, energetic issue, i.e. I don't have the physicality, I don't have enough energy, I haven't slept, I haven't trained, I'm not looking after myself, I'm not watered. There's that part. Then the other part outside of that is the emotional part. And this is the most underrated part of smashing procrastination out of the park. It's understanding that sometimes procrastination is actually an emotional mindset and psychological issue, not that you don't want to do it or you can't be asked or you're lazy. Because what happens is you procrastinate and then you start beating yourself up for it. You start giving yourself shit. You start judging yourself. That's just wasting time and energy and clarity that you could be spending on driving the business forward, driving your clients forward, and getting better results in all areas of life.
Yeah, definitely. I think definitely for me it was an emotional thing. I've got energy to give at any time, and I have. I mean, probably when I came to you, it was an 8 out of 10. Maybe now I'm 9 out of 10. So there's definitely still improvement. But I've always had energy, and that's why I wondered why am I procrastinating? Because I'm very clear on the pathway that I want to go down as well. I've always had a very big vision in terms of this is a huge passion, a huge love of mine in regards to building this special business that helps people become who they want to be. And yet I was procrastinating. I had all the energy in the world. Actually, the procrastination drained that energy. It didn't do the opposite. It didn't recharge me. So there was something happening, probably 10 layers down, maybe 100 layers down that we probably revealed now. And I think have overcome, I would say.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because you start to realize that you get stuck and paralyzed and crippled by procrastination. And then you get frustrated, which makes you procrastinate more, which then makes you get more stuck. And when you have all of those negative emotions, then you start trying to numb out, whether that's with YouTube, Instagram, Netflix. It could be some people drink, some people take drugs, some people look at porn or have lots more sex. People use lots of different vehicles to try and numb out from what actually is deep down just a limiting belief issue or just an emotional puzzle. And if you can start to work on those, and for a lot of people, they're not even aware that these emotions, I mean, you even said not being aware of what's actually happening. and lacking that self-awareness because you haven't had somebody else to hold up a mirror to your blind spots and say, oh, you tell me, is that normal? I don't know. Maybe it's not. Well, you tell me, do we have to live this way? Well, it's just how I've always lived. Okay. Well, and coaches do exactly the same with their fitness clients, right? Just from an emotional, psychological perspective, just a little bit blurrier. And I'll also say to listeners, just be very aware and be careful as to who you take psychological and mindset advice from. A lot of mindset coaches out there that aren't qualified in therapy. They don't understand therapy. They've got a lot of motivational quotes and they've done okay in business and they just slam you with that. So what worked for them might not necessarily work for you. And if they don't understand the emotional puzzles and they're just saying, well, just work harder, bro. Just fucking work harder. Do you want this or not? You know, this guy's doing 50 outbound messages a day. You're only doing 10. That can be quite isolating. And when all you hear is just do more, and then you're stuck in an emotional cycle and you're getting crippled and you're stuck and you're like, oh my God, I'm being told to do more. I want to do more, but I can't. And I'm overwhelmed. I'm stressed. You just get stuck in your own head. So sometimes having somebody to hold up that mirror and go, dude, breathe. You've got so much more time than you think. It's okay. And I think slowing down is a big, big part of that.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time more isn't the answer. It's more of the right things and a lot less of the wrong things, and finding out what's causing those wrong things. So when people would always say, so it's almost that hustle hard, wake up at 5 a.m. mindset that I've always said is just complete BS. Yeah, I just don't think that's going to be the answer. Like you say, it's actually finding out and almost getting like a little winkle picker out into your brain and finding out what's causing that. Why are we behaving in this certain way? Which I think is amazing. Because again, if you told me that like 12 months ago, probably wouldn't have even listened to you.
Well, sometimes as well, it's when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And sometimes, and you'll see this with a lot of your clients, they reach out to you at a certain time of their lives. Perhaps something's not going well for them at work. Perhaps they have been through a breakup, whatever it is. But when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And then all of a sudden, that teacher's just in front of you all the time and you can't not see them. And you're like, okay, I need to do something. So really, it's about taking those opportunities and going, right, well, let's go. Well, let's see. Because I think deep down, you always know. You always know, all right, this person can help me. And you'll come up with all the reasons as to why you're going to put it off. And you come up with all the reasons as to why not to do it. But like you said, sometimes it's just a case of diving in and going, right, come on then, let's go.
100%. It's human nature, right? To just put things off. It's human nature to question whether this is for you and then find the reason why it's not the reason why it is. And to actually have the ability for most things just to go 2 foot into it. Obviously with a level of sensibility behind it, like if you literally can't afford it or whatever. But to be able to go 2 foot into a process when that opportunity arises, I think it's almost a skill to have. It's something I think I've always had instilled from probably my parents, that you always go for those opportunities that arise. But for anyone listening to this that has a history of fucking around, procrastinating that decision, saying I'll think about it or I'll do it tomorrow, get out of your own head and just do it. And then just you're either going to reap the benefits massively from a decision. That's the likely one. If you've seen someone, you've resonated with them and you've thought about it over a period of time, or you won't and you're going to learn the shitloads anyway.
100%. So forget about us as an organization, as a company. Think about the phrase total mental performance. If you'd achieved total mental performance, how would you know?
Yeah, very good question. So I think it's a state of peace with power behind it. So an ability to be able to do what the fuck you want when you want, with a level of intellectual thought behind that. Because if I just say do whatever the fuck you want when you want, that could be anything. But with a level of intellectual thought behind that and a process behind it. So when I said peace and power, I think the peace side of things is being at peace with yourself in your own mind, confident, self-believing, all of those kind of words. And then the power is the ability to almost switch like motivation on, the ability to do what you always say you're going to do. And I always say about the flow state, like the athlete's flow state. I think that is my idea of total mental performance is that flow state.
Archie, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. And also, mate, outside of that, it's been an honor coaching you. And obviously we're still going through coaching now, but seeing that Archie just starting out, trying to figure out, oh, what do I do here? Where do I go here? Oh, do I do this? Do I not do this? To where you are today, how you've grown as a leader, as you've grown as an authority, and as you are now thinking in king, not getting worried and stressed and overthinking or overworking, but you're now, like you said, at peace with power. It's absolutely inspiring, mate. It's been an honor. So I'm incredibly proud of you, and big well done.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it massively.
So where can everyone find you? There'll be some people that might have some follow-up questions or they want to get in touch.
Yeah, cool. So Instagram will always be the best place, I think. So that is archie.optimized, or if you just type in Archie Gravenor, Optimised Entrepreneur, you'll find me.
Amazing. Well, look, it's been an incredible episode. Team, drop us some love. We're going to be posting this out across Spotify, Apple, all of our different channels. Go to Instagram, drop a comment, send Archie a message, send me a message. We always love to hear all of your feedback. And tune in next week, same time as always, for the next episode of the Total Mental Performance Podcast. Thank you, Archie.
Thank you, man.